The return. The morning the lights appeared in the tide pools, Maya Chen was elbow-deep in saltwater, cataloging specimens that looked increasingly unimpressed with her research methods. Her small coastal station sat on the edge of where civilization gave up and let the ocean take over, all rusted railings and windows crusted with salt. The kind of place where coffee tasted like regret and the Wi-Fi only worked when the moon was in a cooperative mood. She was muttering at a particularly stubborn sea cucumber when the water started glowing. Not the normal bioluminescence she'd documented 1,000 times, but something that pulsed with colors she didn't have names for, colors that made her eyes water and her chest feel tight. Maya stumbled backward, knocking over 3 weeks of carefully organized samples, and watched as the tide pool began to spiral upward like liquid glass. The shape that emerged wasn't entirely solid at first, more like the ocean had decided to remember what a person looked like and was doing its best impression. Then it solidified into someone tall and streamlined, with skin that shifted between pearl and deep sea green. His eyes were the color of tropical shallows, and his hair moved like kelp in a gentle current even though there was no wind in her cramped research station. Maya's brain did several complicated gymnastics routines trying to process what she was seeing. When it finally landed on a conclusion, the word came out barely above a whisper. Kale. The figure smiled, and suddenly she was 10 years old again, standing in a tide pool behind her grandmother's beach house, staring at a small wounded creature that had washed up during a storm. She'd hidden him in an old cooler, brought him fish, and cried when the lights came to take him home 3 days later. She'd made him a bracelet from shells and told him she'd explore the oceans with him someday. He'd touched her hand with webbed fingers and promised he'd remember. You grew taller than I expected, Kale said, his voice carrying harmonics that made the glass beakers hum. Though your hair is still the same, dark like deep water. You grew everything, Maya managed, gesturing vaguely at all of him. Also, you're glowing. Is that new? It is customary for guardians, he said, then seemed to notice her confusion. I serve now as an emissary for the oceanic territories. My people have decided to make formal contact with surface dwellers. He paused, reaching into what might have been a pocket in his strange armor made of living coral. I kept something of yours. He held out the shell bracelet. 15 years underwater hadn't damaged it at all. In fact, it looked like the ocean had polished it, made it into something precious. Maya felt her eyes sting with tears she absolutely wasn't going to shed in front of an alien who just materialized in her research station. I thought you'd forgotten, she said quietly. My people do not forget promises made in innocence, Kale replied. Especially not one sealed with gifts made by hand. He stepped closer, water dripping from him but never quite touching the floor, like gravity was optional. I have come back, Maya Chen, because the treaty my people are negotiating requires someone who understands both worlds. Someone the ocean trusts. And you think that's me? I know it is you. Before she could argue or possibly faint, her station's emergency radio crackled to life. The harbor master's voice came through, panicked and confused, reporting that something massive had appeared in the bay and was requesting to speak with Dr. Maya Chen specifically. She looked at Kale, who had the grace to appear slightly apologetic. You brought your entire delegation to my research station. I brought them to international waters, he corrected. They are waiting for your response. Kale, I study sea cucumbers. I don't do interstellar diplomacy or whatever this is. You saved my life when I was young and vulnerable. You showed me that some surface dwellers can be trusted. That is the only qualification that matters. His eyes held hers with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe properly. Will you come? Maya looked at her destroyed samples, her flickering equipment, the shell bracelet that represented a promise she'd thought was childish fantasy. Then she looked back at Kale, who stood in her research station like the ocean itself had decided to pay a personal visit. I'm going to need a better coat, she said finally. His smile was like sunrise over calm water. The submarine that came for them wasn't mechanical. It was alive, a creature of luminescent membranes and gentle pulsing rhythms that hummed through Maya's bones as she stepped inside. Kale guided her with a hand that never quite touched her elbow, always hovering just close enough to catch her if the floor decided to shift, which it did, frequently, because apparently his people designed vehicles that responded to emotional states rather than practical engineering. Try to remain calm, Kale said as the membrane sealed behind them. I'm trapped inside a giant glowing jellyfish heading toward an underwater city I didn't know existed until 20 minutes ago, Maya replied, gripping a ridge that might have been a handlebar or possibly a rib. Calm is not available right now. The descent was smooth and terrifying. Through the translucent walls, she watched the coastal shelf drop away into darkness, then gradually illuminate as they approached something that made her marine biology degree feel like a coloring book. The city sprawled across the ocean floor like a garden of impossible architecture, towers of living coral twisted into spirals, domes of crystalline material that refracted light into colors that shouldn't exist, pathways that glowed with bioluminescence in patterns that looked almost like language. Kale was watching her instead of the view. You are overwhelmed. Deeply, Maya whispered. But in the way where I might cry or laugh or possibly both at the same time. Your emotional range is vast, he observed. It's called being human and severely underprepared. The vessel settled onto a landing platform that felt like sea foam under her feet. When the membrane opened, Maya stepped into water that somehow let her breathe. She gasped, panicked, then realized her lungs were working fine, pulling oxygen from the liquid around her. Kale steadied her with both hands this time, his touch cool and gentle. The city provides, he said softly. It knows you are a guest. Your city is sentient. Everything here is connected. The coral, the water, the light. We do not build structures, Maya. We grow relationships with them. A group of aquatic people approached, their forms varying wildly, some humanoid like Kale, others more serpentine or ray-like, all moving with the fluid grace of creatures who'd never known gravity's cruelty. They studied Maya with luminous eyes, and she tried very hard not to look like a terrified surface dweller who was absolutely a terrified surface dweller. One of them, an elder with skin like abalone shell and hair that drifted in silver clouds, addressed Kale in a language of harmonics and pressure changes. Maya caught none of it except the tone, which was clearly disapproving. Kale responded with sounds that made the water vibrate around them, his posture shifting into something formal and unyielding. The elder's gaze moved to Maya. When she spoke, the words somehow became understandable, translated by the water itself. The human who made promises to a child. I didn't know they were real promises, Maya said quickly. I was 10. I thought I was playing pretend. Children do not pretend about matters of the heart, the elder replied. They speak truth before they learn deception. She circled Maya slowly, examining her like a specimen. Kale has told the council that you swore to explore the oceans with him. That you bound yourself to him with a gift made by your own hands. Do you deny this? Maya looked at Kale, who stood with his webbed hands clasped behind his back, his expression carefully neutral except for his eyes, which begged her to understand something she didn't quite grasp yet. I don't deny it, Maya said carefully. I just didn't think it meant anything official. Among our people, the elder continued, such bonds are sacred. They are considered pre-agreements of partnership, witnessed by the ocean itself. She paused. Kale has carried your gift for 15 years. He has refused 3 formal bonding offers. He altered the parameters of this diplomatic mission to ensure your world was included, specifically so he could find you again. Maya's heart did something complicated. You rewrote treaty negotiations to see me? Kale's bioluminescence flickered, what might have been embarrassment. I ensured all relevant parties were represented. He requested you by name, the elder said dryly. He presented your research credentials to the council. He built an entire argument for why human cooperation required your specific involvement. Okay, so maybe I was thorough, Kale admitted. Maya felt heat in her cheeks despite the cool water. Why didn't you just send a message? Email exists. Probably. Because, Kale said, finally meeting her eyes directly, I needed to know if you still felt the same. If the child who promised to explore the depths with me grew into someone who still wanted to see what lies beneath the surface. The water around them brightened, responding to something in his words. The elder made a sound like distant whale song and turned to the gathering crowd. The human will be tested, she announced. If she speaks truth, the council will honor Kale's bond claim. If she does not, both will face consequences for breaking sacred law. Wait, Maya started, but Kale touched her arm gently. Trust me, he said quietly. Trust the promise you made. The platform beneath them began to descend, taking them deeper into the city where the lights pulsed like heartbeats, and Maya realized that a shell bracelet made by a lonely child had just become the most important diplomatic artifact in two civilizations. The council chamber existed in a place where pressure should have crushed Maya into something resembling a particularly sad pancake, but the water held her gently, a living barrier between her fragile human body and the weight of the entire ocean. The chamber itself was a sphere of dark crystal that somehow showed the currents flowing around them like rivers of light, and seated in a circle were 12 elders whose combined age probably exceeded human civilization. Maya floated in the center, trying very hard not to throw up, which she wasn't sure was even possible underwater but didn't want to test. Dr. Maya Chen, the abalone elder began, her voice resonating through the water. You stand before us because Kale of the Western Currents has invoked an ancient bond. He claims you promised yourself to him in childhood. He claims this promise still holds weight. Speak now, do you honor what you said 15 years ago? Maya's mouth went dry, which was ironic given her current situation. She looked at Kale, who floated beside her, his luminescence dimmed with worry. His webbed fingers twitched like he wanted to reach for her but didn't dare. I honor it, Maya said, her voice steadier than she felt. I didn't understand what it meant then, but I understand now. I promised to explore the oceans with him, and I keep my promises. Murmurs rippled through the council, creating physical waves in the water. And yet, another elder spoke, this one with skin like volcanic rock and eyes that glowed amber, you pursued a life on land. You studied the ocean from a distance, from safety. You did not seek the depths. You did not seek him. The words hit harder than Maya expected. I thought it was a dream, she said quietly. I thought I'd imagined him. When you're a kid and something impossible happens, eventually adults convince you it didn't. I looked for him in every tide pool, every research dive, every documentary about bioluminescent creatures. But I never found proof he was real until today. She kept my bracelet, Kale said suddenly, his voice cutting through the chamber. In a box by her bed. I saw it when I appeared in her station. Maya blinked. How did you know that? The water showed me, he said softly. It shows me everything about you, Maya. It showed me that you still have every shell we collected that summer. That you chose marine biology because of 3 days spent with a wounded creature you thought you'd never see again. That you've been searching for me in every wave without even realizing it. Her eyes stung. That's not fair. It is truth, the volcanic elder said. But truth alone does not satisfy law. Kale has risked his position for this bond. He has compromised diplomatic neutrality. He has exposed our people to surface world scrutiny. What can you offer in return, human? What value does your promise hold? Maya started to answer, but the chamber suddenly shuddered. The crystal walls flickered, and a warning harmonic pulsed through the water. Kale immediately moved in front of Maya, his body shifting into something more defensive, more predatory. Thermal vent collapse, an elder announced. Section 7. Civilian Zone. The abalone elder's expression hardened. This trial is suspended. Kale, you will. I'll help, Maya interrupted. Every head turned toward her. I study marine ecosystems. Thermal vent collapses cause chain reactions, toxic releases, habitat destruction. If you tell me what's happening, maybe I can help. You are human, the volcanic elder said. You cannot survive the temperatures. But I can analyze patterns. Predict cascades. I've spent 10 years modeling environmental disasters, she looked at Kale. You need both perspectives, don't you? Your understanding of the living city and my understanding of chemical systems. Kale's luminescence flared bright. He turned to the council. She is right. Grant us 1 hour. If we fail, judge us both. If we succeed, honor the bond. The abalone elder studied them for a long moment. Then she gestured sharply. Go. The city is dying while we debate. They moved through the water faster than Maya thought possible, Kale pulling her through currents that responded to his commands. He took them to a monitoring station where holographic displays showed the vent system like a tree of fire beneath the city. One branch was collapsing, and the heat was spreading. If it reaches the primary coral network, Kale said, his voice tight, the entire city loses structural integrity. Maya studied the patterns, her mind racing through years of research. The heat is following the water flow. You need to redirect the current, create a buffer zone, she pointed at the display. Here. If you can cool this junction, the thermal spread stops. We have no mechanism for rapid cooling at that depth. Yes you do, Maya said. Me. Kale stared at her. Absolutely not. Hear me out. Your people can create protective barriers with water, right? Like what's keeping me breathing now, she spoke faster as the idea formed. You take me as close as possible. I use my portable cryosampler, the one designed for collecting specimens from extreme environments. It's in my equipment pack, it can generate localized temperature drops. Your people maintain the barrier. I deploy the coolant directly at the junction. The pressure will kill you. Not if the city protects me like you said it would. Not if you're with me. His hands gripped her shoulders, and for the first time since arriving, he looked genuinely afraid. Maya, I did not bring you here to lose you. You brought me here to fulfill a promise, she said, meeting his eyes. So let me explore the depths with you. Even the dangerous ones. The decision took 3 seconds. Kale pulled her close, and they dove. The descent was terrifying and beautiful. The water around them thickened into a protective cocoon, and Maya felt the city itself wrap around her consciousness, whispering wordless reassurances. Kale never let go of her hand. When they reached the junction, the heat was visible as distortion in the water, and Maya could see the coral structures beginning to crack. She pulled out her cryosampler with shaking hands. Hold me steady. Kale positioned himself behind her, his arms creating a cage of safety. I have you. Maya activated the device, and nitrogen-based coolant shot into the superheated water. The reaction was immediate and violent, creating a fog of temperature war. She adjusted the angle, following the patterns she'd studied, and slowly, impossibly, the thermal spread began to stop. The water around them screamed with competing forces, but Kale held her, and the city held them both. When the readings finally stabilized, Maya let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. They returned to the council chamber to find the elders waiting. The abalone elder looked at them both for a long moment, then at the data streaming across the displays. The city lives, she said simply. Because a human kept her promise, she gestured, and the shell bracelet appeared in the water between them, glowing with its own light now. Kale of the Western Currents, Maya Chen of the surface world, the council recognizes your bond as legitimate. You may explore the depths together, as was promised 15 years ago. Kale took the bracelet and placed it on Maya's wrist. In the water, it felt weightless. His fingers lingered on her skin. So, Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper, what happens now? Now, Kale said, his bioluminescence pulsing in patterns she was starting to recognize as happiness, we keep our promise. You teach me about your world, and I teach you about mine. That sounds like it might take a while. I have time, he said softly. I have waited 15 years already. I can wait as long as you need. But Maya smiled, lacing her fingers through his webbed ones. I don't think you'll have to wait much longer. The city around them brightened, and somewhere in the distance, she could hear Whale's song that sounded almost like celebration. She'd come down here thinking she was helping with a diplomatic mission. Instead, she'd found something she'd been searching for in every wave, every tide, every moment she'd spent staring at the ocean and wondering what lay beneath. She'd found her way home to a promise made by a child who didn't know that some vows transcend time, distance, and even the boundary between worlds. Kale pulled her closer, and together they rose through the luminescent water toward whatever came next, two explorers finally beginning the journey they'd promised each other a lifetime ago. The ocean had remembered. And so had they.